If you love what KYRS does and want to keep community radio on the air, you can always make a secure donation online at kyrs.org. Simply go to kyrs.org and right there on the homepage where it says Support KYRS, you can choose a one-time donation or a recurring monthly donation. Fill in the amount you would like to contribute, click on the donate button, and it takes you straight to a secure payment portal where you can choose your payment method. It's that quick, easy, and secure. Thank you for your support of KYRS Community Radio. Think globally. Listen locally. 2020. It gets verse. Mix yourself up a libation. Heck, why not raid the whole bar? Turn off the news of the nation. Sit and relax for Le Soir. Chris Cook will bring you some poems, fresh from his rhyme-spangled mind. Welcome him into your hoems, just as you find you're inclined. Send in your animal haiku. All will be read by the host. Kudos to someone just like you. Vote for the one you love most.
Hello, how are you doing? I'm Stephen Pitters, and welcome to It Gets Verse, a very unique opportunity for KYRS to do some community outreach, and we are streaming live on YouTube and KYRS Facebook. With me in the studio today is the one and only Chris Cook, our Spokane Poet Laureate. Chris, welcome.
Thanks so much, Stephen. Great to be here.
And we also have William Berry, KYRS Board Chair. William, welcome. All right, so what are we going to be doing tonight? Well, Chris and I will talk a little bit, and then he will read some of his works, and also we will also read, William Berry will read haiku, and we obtain about 10 haikus from our folks here in Spokane, and you can vote on which one of these haiku you like the best. But let's get back to some conversation with my good friend, Chris Cook. Chris, as the Poet Laureate of Spokane, what is that all about?
That's a good question, and I think I'm still finding out, Stephen, because this is the one position that I've had in my life that has the haziest or freest parameters. But I think I'm here to make poetry more accessible, more inclusive. And even though I have become maybe the face of poetry in Spokane, I feel like I'm doing my job most effectively when I'm in the background and when I'm here serving others. And so one of my goals was to widen the age range that we serve. And so to that end, I've been able to make outreaches to local elementary, middle, and high schools, working with them. Even in the early days of COVID, when we were doing virtual learning, I was able to assign some video assignments and work with classes and work with some kids that were headed off to poetry slams. And I've had some background in that. At the other age range end or gamut, I had hoped to be able to start a poetry series at retirement homes, but obviously that needs to wait a while to become a reality. And I've also tried to help the arts combine in new ways. My other job is as a trumpet player with the Spokane Symphony, and I love combining music, for instance, with poetry and other art forms with poetry, and I think it helps all art forms if we cross-pollinate like that. So those are some of the ways that I'm trying to reach out and make poetry accessible to everyone here.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the adding music to your works, and that's something that I do with my poetry as well. Collaborate with different artists here in Spokane, because it's like a dream I've had to see what does the poem look like in another medium. You know,
Exactly.
in whether it's in visual art or music, or even actually, I collaborated this past year with a friend of mine who made a quilt interpretation of Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
Wow.
because I'd written a poem about her.
Yeah.
That you know, there was a movie that came out last year or the year before about her early life, and I think it was I had the poem. The title of the poem was "In the Name of Equality." But it was just incredible to see your work in a different medium. Now, that being said, how long have you been writing poetry?
Well, I sort of started here in the Spokane community maybe 20 years ago or
Whoops.
so, but I've been poetry's been a part of my life since I was a little boy, because my grandfather was a poet and had a lot of poet friends, some famous ones, and that was always a part of a visit to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And he was a good letter writer as well, and so he always kept me well supplied with poems, often rewritten in his hand on graph paper, or he would send me the latest chapbook by one of his friends. But yeah, I started here in the poetry community back when you were hosting live events at Auntie's, and now I continue that tradition with 3 Minute Mike. But I agree with you. I think that combining the arts gives poetry a whole new dimension, and I was fortunate back in late winter to realize a dream where I got to do my poetry live at the knitting factory with my colleagues in the Spokane Symphony, where they were backing me up. I had a string quartet accompany one of my poems. And tonight we're going to be able to enjoy, I believe, the first poem in my second set. And thanks to your board president, William Berry, he has supplied me with some nice swampy slide guitar music that works really well with a poem called Opposite Attraction. So I hope you all enjoy that a little later on.
All right. Now, have you taken any of your particular poems and made them into a song? I mean, you said you were, had some of your friends from the symphony play behind you, but have you actually made one of your poems into a song or songs?
Actually, I have poems that include singing in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I have poems that were inspired by songwriters. Actually, two of them tonight. One was inspired by a Bob Dylan tune, Tangled Up in Blue. And another was inspired by one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Randy Newman.
Mm-hmm. Now tell me, you're also a musician, obviously. You mentioned that. How did you get into, playing music, and what is your favorite instrument?
That changes from time to time. I better say that that trumpet is my favorite instrument, because that's what I play. But I frankly don't listen to a lot of solo trumpet recordings, and so I dabble in all kinds of different things. But on the stage at the Fox, I have to say that I've always had a fondness for the cello. It's deep, it's soulful, it's resonant, it's big, and it can accompany, it can lead. I don't know, there's just a broadness and a depth and a heaviness to it that appeals to me.
Now, let me ask you this other question. How long have you been living in Spokane?
Got here in 1973, and I stayed put ever since. I was a member of a Navy family, and so we got stationed different places every year or two. A 2-year stay was a long time. And my dad was a physician. He's retired now to Portland, Oregon. But that career also entails a lot of moving. So I was just old enough by then to decide that this was where I wanted to be. I left for school in Boston, but other than that, Spokane has been home. And I was very glad to get back here after college and win a spot almost immediately in the Spokane Symphony. And
It
I've
seems
been
that
here
we
ever
have
since.
something else in common because I went to school in Boston as well.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's like, whoa, I guess it's like, go west, young man. But that I came west and then I turned around and went back east and then came back.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close, and I think maybe it's time for us to sit back and enjoy one of your poetic presentations. It's on you now.
Thanks, Stephen. Here's a poem called Tunnel Vision. I stood and watched a sunlit meadow not too long ago, with no idea what transpired within the earth below. Just past that hill and underground, a little to the right, a gopher as he burrowed had a momentary fright. In reaching out to scoop some dirt and tunnel on ahead, it seems he put his paw on someone's fuzzy face instead. A female voice said, "Do you mind?" The gopher answered, "Huh? I guess I didn't see ya, 'cause it's dark." She said, "No duh." Her breath aroused him. It conveyed a hint of turnip peel. He said, "Hello, I'm Thomas." She said, "Hi there, I'm Cecile." He said, "I'd like to think it's fate that both our tunnels met. What say we also join our lives in rapturous duet?" She said, "You're moving way too fast. Besides, I've not yet seen you. I cannot give an answer till I've had a chance to screen you. I'm thinking we should find the surface, get you in some light. It's good to check on certain things. Your teeth, your hair, your height." They chatted on the journey up and seemed to hit it off. They both liked ginger root, pecans, and Rimsky-Korsakov. He said, "You know I like a gal that's down to earth like you." "Good grief," she laughed. "A girl could gag on puns like that one. Phew." But then she stopped and said, "Oh dear, I must have lost my mind. I can't observe you in the light. We moles are nearly blind." He said, "You're not a gopher?" Answered she, "You mean you are? Well, that was close. I'm glad we hadn't gotten very far." "Boy, yeah," he said uncertainly. "I thought you'd be my wife." She shook his paw and walked away and said, "Good luck with life." The winter winds were harsh that year, the meadow white with frost. Below, the gopher dwelled upon that day he loved and lost. He dug and scooped to soothe his pain when all the world seemed black. Then suddenly, he felt a face that said, "I'm back." In measured words, she said, "Forgive me, somehow I forgot. The gift of sight was never mine. I'm blind, but you're not. And me a mole and you a gopher, everything seemed wrong. I had to run away despite how well we got along. Up top, you'll see me. What if I don't meet with your approval?" He said, "Well, lots of doctors do unsightly mole removal. But hey, you needn't worry, 'cause I've dug you from the start." Despite his dreadful puns, he'd won a place within her heart. Then side by side, they carved a brand new tunnel underground. How precious is the moment that's both simple and profound. The darkness hid their little smiles, and life was filled with promise for one young mole, Cecile, and her beloved gopher, Thomas. Here's a poem for everyone who remembers Fred Rogers and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. This is called Goodnight, Fred. In the great green room, there was a telephone
and a red balloon, and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. On the television set, there was a trolley car, and a neighborhood, and a man in a sweater who was very, very good. There was Daniel Striped Tiger and Lady Elaine, and patiently taking the time to explain. There was Mr. McFeely with speedy delivery, and how to dress warm when you're freezing and shivery, and teaching how sneakers are properly laced, and how to make projects with scissors and paste, and puppets like Friday the 13th, a king, and serious talks about serious things like the death of a pet, and disease, and divorce, explaining the anger, the guilt, the remorse, how it's not a child's fault and it never will be. It's so hard when you're 8 and your sister is 3. He taught us with patience and kindness and love that despite all the bad, there's a goodness above. Unlike other adults, he did not condescend, so he spoke to us just as though we were a friend. First time I saw his awkward style, his nerdy look, his cheesy smile, I thought, come on, you can't be real. No one's like this. What's your deal? But through the years, he proved me wrong, just bit by bit and song by song. He sang about us being neighbors and such, how we're growing inside, how we matter so much, how it's such a good feeling just being alive. And then one day, he wasn't. The day that Mr. Rogers died, a shaken planet stopped and cried. So, good night sneakers, good night sweater, good night show that made us better. Good night trolley, good night bed, good night childhood, good night Fred. Here's a poem called The Curse of Rhyme. Good God, I'm sick of poets who convey their verse through rhyme. To listen to that cloying crap's a total waste of time. They say, I'll entertain you with some witty repartee. Amusing quips shall pass my lips, selected just for thee. They cluelessly expostulate on some ill-chosen topic, then make a jerky segue just to rhyme it with myopic. They never met a tired cliche they couldn't put to use. Ooh, heaven above, that rhymes with love. Oh, please, go get the noose. Don't read that sing-song, namby-pamby, lame iambic verse. Please, no quatrains and no pantoums and sonnets. Good night, nurse. And they're partial to limerick form, which is known to draw flies by the swarm. Such a waste of the word is this limerick turd, so disgusting and smelly and warm. You think you've suffered poets who resemble these I've said? You're lucky you don't have to hear the one who's in my head. Here are 3 poems that border on the macabre. The first one is called Crematorium Bob. Crematorium Bob was a slovenly chap. He had ash on his shoulders and ash in his lap, and he showed no respect when performing his job. Crematorium Bob. In the process of filling the urns, it is said that he typically spilled the cremains of the dead. And one day as this happened, the rattle of chains was the prelude to moanings of torturous strains. 'Twas the dearly departed, the souls of the just, and they visited he who had turned them to dust. They surrounded him, forced him to bow down his head. They recited a page from the book of the dead. In a basso profundo they read Robert's name, and he shrieked and he writhed and he burst into flame. What remained was some ash in a pair of his shoes, which had landed in hell on some bilious ooze. Mephistopheles welcomed the newcomer's dust, and he picked up the shoes with a slavering lust, and he snorted the ashes and hawked up a gob. Crematorium Bob. Gus the taxidermist. When Gus was 8, he got a junior taxidermy kit. The lad was overjoyed. Indeed, it seemed the perfect fit. So perfect, Gus decided, that he made it his career. His shop was where the sportsmen brought their elk and bear and deer. He's 80 now, but never felt more young, old Gus contends. He says the secret lies in staying close to childhood friends. And that's why Gus has got a secret room just off the den, reserved for Becky, Philip, Stevie, Abigail, and Ben. The town had grieved when long ago the 5 went unaccounted. Young Gus was home as lovingly he gutted, stuffed, and mounted. These days he tends their every need. He dusts them quite a bit. He loves a rousing game of tag. Works best when Gus is it. The beauty of the perfect suture, realistic eyes. Old Gus admires his handiwork. No need to thank me, guys. His little friends continue helping Gus relive his youth and showing him in special ways the path to deeper truth. 'Cause thanks to them, he knows you really can go home again to play with Becky, Philip, Stevie, Abigail, and Ben. There's a poem called Edwin that was inspired by Randy Newman, and if I could do a better impression of Randy Newman, that would be the voice you'd hear on this one. My friend Edwin's body's missing stuff. He don't complain though, Edwin tough. They had to take a kidney. No great loss, lot of people bear that cross. Tonsils ain't there either, but who cares? Many folks is missing theirs. He got no hair. Hey, don't I know about that? Feel self-conscious? Wear a hat. Got no teeth, but he still talk all right. Takes the false ones out at night. He also had some hemorrhoids removed. Says the pain is much improved. Told me once he lost his sense of smell. I farted, see if he could tell. He couldn't. Amazing just how much of him is gone. But Edwin keep on keeping on. The times I talk with Edwin, people stare. They tell me he not really there. But I can see him. Edwin, less of you is more than all of everybody else. I said, Edwin, less of you is more than all of everybody else. You always been there for me. Here's a poem called Furt. We moved so often that I had come to appreciate those who reached out first. It was the start of 4th grade at Crown Elementary School, and I was the new kid yet again. I was told to stay away from a girl they called Furt. When I asked why, they said it was because she was gross, that she had a bladder problem. Her real name was Debbie Johnson. She was tall, blonde, looked a little older than the rest of us, and she had these deep, sad eyes. On the playground, whenever she got too close, everyone screamed, "Ooh, Furt!" and ran away. The only time I was aware of her problem was once during class when she suddenly appeared between our desks. She was quietly crouched on the floor, mopping up after herself with some Kleenex. Our eyes briefly locked, and there was a shame in hers that went on forever. They also said, "Please don't tell anyone." Later, during recess, we had used waxed paper on the big metal slide with the 2 bumps to make it fast. I was the first to try it out, and I had the bright idea of going down head first. Back then, the surfaces of playgrounds were made of cement. I hit the first bump going so fast that I went airborne. The next thing I hit was the pavement, leaving me bloody and dazed. I lay there on my back, and when my vision finally cleared, I found that I was looking up into the compassionate eyes of Debbie Johnson. She was the only one who had come to help me. I paused for a moment. Then I got up and screamed, "Ooh, Furt!" and ran away. Here's a poem about coffee culture and the beat generation. This is called Are You Hip to the Drip? Its life-affirming vapors rise to meet my nostril flare. They say I drink too much of this, but ask me if I care. Its chocolate-tinted pigmentation mixed with half and half spawns prose that's deep enough to write the Starbucks epitaph. Yet how can something that's so good at rousing all my senses also give me Black Death breath? With that, my jawline tenses. The Costa Rica Arabica bean, whose fame resounds, can take my just brushed pearly whites and make them muddy browns. But waking to my morning paper, juice, and no French roast is like Father, Son, and no Holy Ghost. A BLT without the toast, Nostradamus without his nost. What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage, induced by a caffeine boost. Without espresso, Porky Pig's buddy would come out sounding more like this. I quote him here, buddy. And if it weren't for French pressed brew when coffee houses ruled, the 1950s greatest scribes would lack that vital fuel. Kerouac preferred it black, and Allen Ginsberg howled. If someone took away his mug, he'd want them disemboweled. When Burroughs ate his naked lunch, he washed it down with what? And Salinger drank Guatemalan Joe and nothing but. I ask you, what did Kesey and the pranksters serve their guests to stay alert and cram the night before the acid tests? Neil Cassidy was known for his electric Kool-Aid jive, but coffee was the drink that made his spirit so alive. They've left their marks and gone to beatnik places in the sky, and in their names we carry on with word and cup held high.
Am I on? Okay. Hi, this is William Barry. I'm board chair for the radio, and we're going to talk some haiku. And I'm back with Stephen Pitters again. We went to Alyssa's running the board for us over there. You won't see her on camera because we only have 2 of them. But she was supposed to go to Stephen Pitters, but we're okay. Just pretend he introduced me and stuff. But we would like to remind you that number 1, Chris is going to do another wonderful set here in just a minute. So if you know of anybody who might be interested in hearing some of that gorgeous poetry, that funny stuff, that poignant stuff, alert them, send them a text or something and get them to tune in. We're going to be here for another half hour or so, another set of Chris. In the meantime, if you want to support your local community radio station, you can always do that. Go to our website, kyrs.org, and there's a Donate Now button. You can do a monthly donation or a one-time donation, stuff like that. Keep us on the air, become a member, and support outreach programs like this that we can't do live anymore, but we're trying this live streaming thing. Or if you're into texting, you can text to the number 44321 and type in Give KYRS, all one word, and go to a secure donation spot that way. We asked for some haiku since Chris talks about animals a lot in his poems. We asked for people to submit haiku including animals, and we have time for 10 of them. We got 10 submissions. They're wonderful submissions, and I would love it if you could, out there in listening land, vote on these and tell me which ones are your favorite. So we're going to try to get them to appear on the screen so that you can read them, but I'm going to read them out loud as well. If you type in to the comments, make a comment, there's a little loop of the haiku that appears on our Facebook page that's probably somewhere within your viewing range if you're watching this. If you type a comment there, and they are numbered, so you can vote for number 1, bird, number 3, canine, whatever. Just let us know which one you want. By the end of the show, we'll have a tally and see which of these wonderful things is your favorite. There are 10. I'm going to go through them now. Haiku 1 was submitted by Gay Waldman, and here it is. You are a delight. Your beauty, patience, and flight stay, my feathered friend. That's great. I love all of these. There's some really good things. Haiku 2 is about a cat named Sassy, I presume, by Shauna Troyer. Cat with muddy paw. The water ran high today. New trail through the house. So possibly a bad cat. So that was number 2, the cat, Sassy the cat. Number 3 is about a canine by Jim Tate. COVID and canine. What would I do without her? Rosie gets me through. So our canine friends there. That was number 3. Remember to vote by number. That's the easy way to do it. Number 4, sent in by David Egley. Keeping its distance, the weathered owl glares through trees. You have your mask too. I like that. I'm not like putting my finger on the scale. You guys get to vote. I like all of these. I'm kind of a cat person. We used to have a dog. I've never had an owl. Okay. Number 5, another cat one. Lori Stonehawker sent this in. Oh, the Norman cat, the sleek, silly, tall goofball. He is furry joy. So that's number 5. Number 6, haiku number 6, another dog one. Stella Delaney. The dog turned toward home after a night on the town. Yes, life is a bitch. So there you have that. That was number 6. Number 7, we were allowing imaginary mythical beasts, and we got a unicorn haiku. So Patty Shastani? I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Patty sent us in. Kids are resilient. With their imagination become unicorns. That's great. Okay, haiku number 8 by Amber Mackenzie. The white tiger stalks. Tall grasses hide her approach. Caw-caw, warns the bird. There we go. That was number 8. Number 9. 2 left. This one is another owl one. Lorelei Plagman. Landing on my lawn, that owl turned and locked his gaze, my eyes huge as his. I like that image as well. Okay, last one, last but not least. Ariel Renee. A bear over there, eating berries and salmon. Hibernation nears. Yes, that time is coming. The winter of our content here. So there's all 10. I think Alyssa's going to put this on rotation a little bit so that you can see all of them flash by. Stephen Pitters, what do you think? Any of those your favorite?
Well, I have to. I would say I have a bias only because I know one of the individuals.
Oh, well, you can vote. People, you get by the end of the show, we gotta know. So there'll be another. I don't know. Chris is going to do another 15, 20 minutes of performance and stuff. So while he's doing that, you can vote in.
Okay, so I'll vote after at the very end.
Okay, you can tip the scales and we can see. Well, we were talking about counting the hanging chads and all of the. You never know what's going to happen in these voting things. But
oh yes.
But I'd like to thank everybody for sending them in. I hope it's been a little bit of fun to write and read these here. It just feels like. KYRS has often had like the concerts on the rooftop at the Big Dipper, speakers and stuff like that. We just can't do that. We can't get together. So the attempt with this is to try to do a little bit of outreach and make everybody feel like there's still other people engaging out there. So I'm happy that all of you people participated and sent in some poems.
So fantastic, because we are here at KYRS with our KYRS outreach event for this evening. It Gets Verse, and we are streaming live on YouTube and on KYRS Facebook. And as I said, we heard Chris Cook and William Berry just doing the haiku, and I think we're going to get back to another set by Chris.
Yes, we are. I think he's waiting in the wings, and we're just about ready to go back to him. So remember, get your vote in with that. Chris is going on elsewhere on Facebook, another panel on Facebook, however that lands on your computer or your phone, there's that rotation is on, so you can refresh your memory. But let's bring Chris back on here for another of his wonderful sets. boy, it's just great to see and hear his stuff. So, Chris, let's go.
Here's a poem called Opposite Attraction. It's so uncanny how it works. You trust in love and fate, and bucking all the odds, sometimes you meet the perfect mate. And so it was one day as I was walking past this pond, awash in thoughts of destiny and things that lie beyond. And then I saw him circling around and round and round, a bullfrog missing one back leg. He glanced at me and frowned. I wondered how he got that way. A crocodile, perhaps. Their jaws are well designed for causing gruesome handicaps. Or what about some crazed French chef appearing through the fog with cleaver raised and poised to chop? Come closer, little fool. I'll bet the frog can't sleep some nights and whimpers for his mother, afraid the chef will soon return to amputate the other. But then I saw another swimming frog, a mademoiselle. She'd also lost a leg, I swear. She circled round as well. The lack of one propelling leg unfortunately serves to set a frog upon a path of long, unending curves. But each had lost a different leg and faced a tragic plight. See, he could only circle left, and she could circle right. They shared a simple dream where lovers' paths can coincide, of swimming straight and far, exploring waters deep and wide. I cringed. It hurt my gut to watch this pitiful affair. Was this the twist of fate that was intended for this pair? I thought I'd try to help, and so I whispered in his ear. He nodded that he understood. The female circled near. He quickly grabbed around her waist. She did the same to him, and with their two collective legs set out to try and swim. It worked. Their path was straight. Before returning to the wild, they both looked back and winked at me. I raised my thumb and smiled. This is called So That's What Haley Did. My wife and I first saw her in a cage at the county animal shelter. Her eyes said, "Please take me home. I don't belong here." Our hearts melted. We wanted to adopt her, but knew our kids needed to meet her first. That night, my sleep was fitful as I worried that she'd be gone by the next day. Miraculously, she was still there in the morning when our children fell in love with her as well. Would someone come adopt her first? I thought, dear God forbid. She wanted to come home with us, so that's what Haley did. She immediately became the center of our lives. She was so meek that when you greeted her, she'd plop down, roll onto her back, and offer up her soft white belly. Limitlessly friendly from her ego to her id, she knew that she was meant to love, so that's what Haley did. The first time our children played with her in the backyard, Robbie and Grant strayed too far. That's when the shepherd in Haley kicked in, and she guided them back to the flock. Her instinct said to run in circles, herding up each kid, protecting them from getting lost. So that's what Haley did. Kelsey and Milena taught her some amazing tricks. Shake hands, high five, lie down, roll over, and leap into the air with a full spin. She was good at playing games, too. Hide and seek was great. Our children ran upstairs and hid. They'd yell, "Come find us, Haley girl." So that's what Haley did. As she aged, her adventures happened more and more during her dreams. All four of her legs, her jowls and whiskers, but just one eyelid would twitch as she chased away whatever it was that was threatening us. There were also little pantomimed barks and yips. In dreams with twitching jowls and paws, the flutter of one lid, she thought I must protect them still. So that's what Haley did. Eventually the morning came when she couldn't get out of her bed by herself anymore, so I gathered her up and carried her to her yard. I remember trying to convince myself it was just the chill in the air that was making Haley's arthritis flare up. So Haley, somehow knowing just how much her health had slid, decided it was time to go. Fluff and Father Murphy. The balls on Father Murphy's dog were big beyond compare. He waddled when he walked because he had no room down there. The dog, named Fluff, would lick those things according to his whims. He nibbled them at Sunday Mass, in rhythm with the hymns. Confession was distracting, what with Fluff just lying there, so diligently nuzzling his patch of scrotum hair. A woman came for absolution, saying as she sat, "Forgive me, Father, I have sinned." God damn, those balls are fat. Cojones of sufficient weight can cause some nasty sagging, so Fluff was forced to tiptoe to prevent his nads from dragging. But Fluff was such a special dog, his testicles aside. See, Father had been blind since birth, and Fluff was Father's guide. Many were the times that Father reached to stroke Fluff's head and ended up caressing something large and round instead. I struggled over whether I should tell him what it was that he so gently scratched beneath that mighty mound of fuzz. I kept it to myself, and Father Murphy never knew. His life was filled with happiness, and Fluff was happy too. The Great Horned Owl. On the same day I've been assigned to write a poem about the Great Horned Owl, I learned that actor Max von Sydow has died. Max von Sydow, who famously portrayed the title character in The Exorcist, leaving me to write about a demonic-looking horned creature capable of turning its head completely backwards. Here's a poem about an insect that never fails to give me perspective. This is called The Mayfly. It's a sonnet. At 6 o'clock one warm September morn, before the day had fully stretched and yawned, a wide-eyed little mayfly babe was born upon an unassuming little pond. Before he tried his legs, he flapped his wings, and soon explored the world from up above. He got to see the most amazing things. By afternoon, he'd met his one true love. By evening, though, he'd grown quite short of breath, and mayflies know that life is never fair. So rather than bemoan his early death, he closed his eyes and said a little prayer. Lord, thank you for the wonders of this day. He smiled, and then he softly passed away. Here's a poem that was inspired by Bob Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue. This is called Love Down Under. Way up high in the trees, in the land they call Oz, a self-conscious koala with oversized paws and a body she felt was more chubby than lean, was obsessed with remaining unseen. She felt far more at home staying off of the grid behind thick eucalyptus leaves. That's where she hid. And she clung there, protected from anyone's view, till a voice right behind her said, "Boo." She instinctively tightened her grip on the tree. Then she nervously asked, "Are you talking to me? You're the first to have noticed me here in this spot." And he said to her, "How could I not?" She said, "I am aware how I look. Don't be rude. I be out in plain sight if I want to be viewed. If I want my unlovable shape to be seen, the result of some mutated gene. If I want these big Frankenstein paws to be watched, and this mole on my cheek and my ears badly botched, all these terrible things in one body residing, don't you think I would not have been hiding?" In the silence that followed, more potent than words, interrupted by callings of tropical birds, he smiled sadly, then said in a voice filled with pain, "I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. How could I not means it wasn't a choice. How could I not gave me cause to rejoice. And though how could I not had the purest intention, I guess I should probably mention I've always believed I'm too small for a male. I'm too short in the arms and too long in the tail, and my eyes do not match and my voice is too high. I've had days when I've wanted to die. But then you came along, and I loved what I saw, an enchanting koala without any flaws. Then she looked at him differently, gave him a smile, and they gently held pause for a while. Eucalyptus leaves instantly burst with new taste, and their eyes perceived dewdrops as jewel encased, as if suddenly feelings long dead had awoken, and nothing more had to be spoken. They had spent their lives thinking their looks were all wrong, that the world was a place where they'd never belong. But they learned they were just as they should have appeared, because normal is wonderfully weird. This is called A Death in the Family. I didn't know until after he was gone that he had written a poem, just the one. It was so perfect that there didn't need to be another one. It was the one he had written that asked for my mother's hand in marriage. On a rocky outcropping overlooking the river where they would build their home and their life together, this strong, vital, brave, and outspoken man took that poem from his pocket, unfolded it, looked into my mom's eyes, and couldn't read it. He knew there was no way that the truth and the beauty and the love and the sheer honesty of the words were too much for him to be able to speak. Instead, he silently handed it over to her, and another life was about to be changed through the simple act of reading a poem. And now he's gone. For a while, we were all sucked into the vacuum, the vast paralyzing emptiness caused by his absence. The emptiness was so absolute that for a time, I wondered if I was dying too. My senses were failing. I still had eyes, but my vision was dulled. I had hands, but there was a numbness to my touch. I was still drawing in breath, but it brought with it no vitality. I had to find a way out of the abyss. I had to find life, to find meaning, to find out if there was anything that still mattered. One of my first life-affirming acts was to go back to Broken Mic, a poetry open mic at Nito Burrito across from the Davenport. Its atmosphere is compatible with life. There is breathable air. There is light and warmth. There is water. There is food. It is life-sustaining, it is life-affirming, and most of all, it is life-giving. There we give birth to poems. They are wondrous creations. We love them, we nurture them, we make them presentable, and then we send them out into the world by proclaiming them. Our poems are love, and they are love that has not yet been found. They are dreams, and they are stark reality. They are clear vision, and they are feeling your way around in the dark, hoping to touch something, anything, familiar. Our poems are sincerity, and they are whimsy. They are hope, and they are despair. They are comfort, and they are risk. Our poems are universal, and they are personal. They are a questioning of faith, and they are absolute faith. They are health, and they are frailty. They are the wonder of new birth, and they are a death in the family. And once in a great while, our poems are so perfect, so beautiful, and the sheer honesty of the words so overwhelming that the page must be silently handed over. Dr. Seuss breaks free. There were tangerine trees, there were marmalade skies. I saw cellophane green with my colorblind eyes. From a distance, the house looked cartoonish and fun, and its colors were lit by the bright morning sun. As the camera zoomed in through the outermost wall, it progressed to a room at the end of the hall. Dr. Seuss and the missus were lying in bed when a nasty idea popped into his head. He said, "Baby, you know that it works every time. Dr. Seuss has the power to seduce you with rhyme. I am Theodore Geisel. I'm Seuss. I am Sam. Gonna get up inside of your green eggs and ham. Oh, I feel good like James Brown. I'm a sex machine. Heh! Mrs. Seuss's response was to simply say, meh. She said, darling, for years you're the man I've adored. Please, I don't want to hurt you, but Teddy, I'm bored. I don't know how it happened, dear Theodore G., but your rhymes are no longer seductive to me. Anapestic quadrameter just makes me tired, and I'm worried that maybe your mojo's expired. He said, baby, don't joke about something like that. I can make you meow like the cat in the hat. You're as hot and as juicy as Whoville roast beast. Do you want to make love? She said, not in the least. Though it pained him, he knew what he needed to do. He would change how he wrote. He would try something new. He locked himself in his study for a very long time. He neither ate nor slept. When he finally emerged, he had a list poem called 137 Reasons Why I Still Love Your Habit of Tucking Your Hair Behind Your Ear. He had memorized it. Number 1 was, because I get to see it every day. The other 136 were just as heartfelt. He'd also written her his first haiku. Beloved Audrey, forget form, rhyme, and meter. You are poetry. He said, I'm sorry if it's not very good, but I hope you like it anyway. She said, don't. Then he said, I might slip and go back to my rhymes. And you can, Audrey said, any number of times, but what matters is that you can choose to be free. You have proven you can, and you did it for me. And I think, Dr. Seuss, that that's sexy as hell. Let's go see if your mojo is healthy as well. They crawled back into bed where their passions were stirred, and it all came to be through the love of the word.
Hello, Steve Pitters here, and this is the KYRS Outreach. It gets verse, and we just had the pleasure of listening to Spokane Open Port Laureate Chris Cook as we are streaming live on YouTube and KYRS Facebook. So it's time for you to remember you have got to vote for who you think is the best haiku that you've heard right here. So hurry up and vote. It's time for you to do that. And one of the good things is that KYRS does a lot of great outreach opportunities. And since we are all kind of in a lockdown mode for the virus, I'm going to ask Chris, what have you been doing to manage the virus?
Well, I've been offering up poetry events via Zoom. Yeah. So, which actually has its benefits. But yes, I still host 3-Minute Mike on behalf of Auntie's Bookstore every first Friday at 7. So we just did that last night. And I co-host Broken Mike, the other long-time poetry open mic, normally at Nito Burrito, sharing the same ceiling space and footprint as the Baby Bar. And that's every Wednesday at 6:30. And the benefit of that is that we can see all of our friends without masks on, and we can see their beautiful smiles. And we can also welcome them from all parts of the country. Many of our readers head off to school and other parts of the country. They've moved away. And so we've had poets joining us from as far away places as New York and Texas. And last night we had someone from Florida, Colorado. So those are the benefits.
Okay. Another point here to ask you about is, when you came to Spokane, did you ever think that you would, 20 years or so later, you'd still be here?
I was hoping, because I fell in love with Spokane, and I have loved how the cultural scene and the arts have grown every year, and that's always been a part of my life. And so it's grown up with me. And so I couldn't be happier being here. I never had any intention of going away except maybe to school, but the dream was always to come back, and it worked out.
Yeah, I have to admit that because I've been here as long as you have, and I can see how much has changed, especially in the arts scene around here. I mean, there was a time when open mics were very few. Now there are so many, almost you can get to one almost every day of the week. Well, before the virus, but we do have technology that can bring you back to it. But I said there's been a lot of change, and we've got so much talent here. Okay, I have something to share. Look like Haiku number 2 is the winner, and that is Shauna Troyer, About the Cat. Sassy the Cat is the winner, and Shauna Troyer, fantastic haiku, well read by our one and only William Berry here. So you did your part to ensure that all our listeners heard it and were overwhelmed by it. So here for Shauna Troyer and Sassy the Cat.
Congratulations, Shauna.
Okay. Suffice to say, we are closing in on our end of our time here together. And before we do that, I'd like to give a shout out to our video technician, Alyssa Hayworth, in the house. Here.
Yeah, Alyssa.
And to Chris Cook for sharing with you some of his fantastic poetry. I've heard Chris read, and I've always been very impressed. I think he is one of the best poets that we have in this area, and I'm glad that he brought his talent to us once again. And not to mention William Berry, the KYRS board chair, who put this all together. So here's a shout out to William as well. And so we're at that time. I think we're down to about 3 minutes. So I guess we can bow our heads and say, see you again real soon. Bye.